Hi everyone, today we're going to have a look at this new power supply coming from Montech known as the Century II. Now I'd like to thank Montech to have provided this unit for me to share with everyone. First off, the packaging of this box is fantastic. Take a look. See, with all this at the side, the power efficiency and the specs of the power supply inclusive of the cables and such. Now this power supply comes in three variants, which is 850 watt, 1050 watt, which right now I'm having, and the 1200 watt, and this is rated as platinum grade from Cybenetics, though it's actually a gold plus power supply, and it has a 10-year warranty. When you unbox it, what you will get, a manual telling you all the specification and such, the AC plug. Now do take note, this is meant for USA plug. There is European plug, right? They do come according to where you purchase the power supply. A bag of modular cables, which I will show you in details later. A bag of Velcro stripe, total of 5 for cable management. This is the 5th one. 5 zip ties, a bag of PSU screw for you to mount your PSU to the case, and the unit itself, which is wrapped nicely in this plastic bag. This bag that has a Montech triangular logo, it consists of all these modular cables, and all these cables are flat. As you can see, it's very flexible. You can even bend it this way and it doesn't break the cables, and these are excellent for cable management. Now you have the 24 pin cables, which has a length of 600mm, 2 8-pin EPS cable, which has a length of 700mm, 3 PCIe cables, which is meant for your GPU, and this is good whereby your GPU having 3 8-pin connectors, so we can use them individually instead of daisy chain, which is not advisable, and these are of 600mm in length. Next you have 3 SATA cables, which is meant for your SSD or hard disk, and these are of a length of 950mm, and this is the legacy 4-pin Molex connector, which is meant for your old hard drive, which we don't use anymore, and this length is of 950mm. And last but not least, the 12 volt high power cable, which is meant for your latest 4000 series and 5000 series graphic card, which is from Nvidia, and this are of the latest standard, which is 2x6. Now something as a tip, choose the cables that you need to plug to your PSU, and for the rest, right, make sure you keep it in this bag with the logo. Reason being, right, if you have another power supply and it does come with this kind of flat cables, do not mix them up. Alright, if you accidentally make use of other power supply flat cables onto the PSU, right, you might just blow your power supply. So make sure to keep them separately. As you can see here, this is of another power supply. I'll just keep it in this bag. Else, as I mentioned, those that you need, okay, for example, let's say these are the cables that you need, the rest keep it in the bag. So in future, right, if you want to, having additional components and such on this unit itself, make sure to look for this bag where it contains all the cables. So take note on that. Do not, okay, I repeat, do not cross or mix and match cables on the power supply, as their pinouts, okay, are very different. I like how Montech have designed this power supply. It's simple and elegant, very eye-catching, based on the fact two-tone, silver and black. Now, if you were to build a pin build with a system that is of gunmetal, okay, some of the cases they have cut out where you can display the colors of your power supply, it will be nicely blend in. If you have a system or a motherboard that is made of, gunmetal theme, it will blend in very well. Now, as for the design wise, the top where you have the label, and this are all the amperage of the individual rail, be it the 3.3 volt, 5 volt or the 12 volt, and the standby power plus 5. And at the side, you have a very nice embedded logo with the label Century, and at the top here a subtle label that says Montech. Same goes to the other side. Nicely done. And this is the bottom where you can see the triangular logo. These are not just for show. In fact, these are ventilated holes, very unique. And right beneath is a fan which is making use of a 135mm fluid dynamic bearing fans, and this is where it draws the air in and to dissipate out at the rear. And on the rear itself, right, there is a power switch, the AC plug, and this smart zero fan on and off button. So if you want silent operation and wouldn't want the fan to consistently run, you can turn it on, and until it reaches the max temperature of 50 degrees Celsius, right, then your fan will start to ramp up the RPM. But if you want your fan to keep on spinning, right, you can just turn this off. But I believe most of you would prefer a silent operation, so make sure to keep this on. So what happens is that when this is on, right, when the power supply doesn't reach at a 50 degrees Celsius, the fan will remain quiet. It will not spin at all. Once it reaches 50 degrees, it will spin. And this power supply is making use of 100% high-end Japanese capacitor. The prolonged life will be very solid, and the protection will be very solid too. Now on this end, these are all the modular socket where you have the CPU or PCIe socket. Right beside it, you have the 12 volt high power socket, followed by your SATA and Molex socket, and this is the 24-pin socket, nicely labeled, and the wording are big enough for you to see to where you plug to. Though this is a 80 plus gold power supply, but it's rated by Cybenetics as platinum, meaning to say it has a power efficiency of 92% at half load. Now what does that mean? Take for example, this power supply is 1050 watt, meaning to say it's 1050 watt. Okay, this string from 0 to 10,050, and if it runs at half load, meaning to say the midpoint, which is at 525 watt. So within the range from 0 to 525 watt, it is able to carry the current at 92% efficiency. Anything above that, right, is 89%. Now that is for platinum grade. To further explain, to have a clearer picture, now for gold rated, Cybernetics gold rated, at hard point is at 89%, and whatever beyond that is 87%. Now I will just make use of a waterfall water and 2 bucket. This is of platinum grade, which has a 92% efficiency, and this is of gold graded, which is at 89% efficiency. As you can see, there are 2 holes over here. So imagine that you carry these 2 buckets to a waterfall to collect water, and you fill up the water 100% on both buckets. So as you walk back, okay, let's say your town is over here, you walk back to midpoint, right, there might be spillage and flow of water out of the bucket. But on the platinum side, you're containing 92% even you walk to the midpoint. As compared to this, you have some spillage over here and having leak based on the hole itself. So it's at 89%. So this platinum, this is gold. Okay, so what it meant is at midpoint, right, you're losing more current on the gold rather than the platinum. And when you go beyond that, as you walk nearer to your home or your town, there will be additional spillage and such. Same goes to your gold, but this will spill more. So having to say, right, when you walk further up above the midpoint, this will contain at least 89% of the water. Else for this, right, is 87% of the water. So this is actually what it meant by platinum and gold. And why is it good to have platinum? Because throughout the whole walk, right, your water is sustainable until 89% even if you reach the end. Else for this, right, you have 87%. So imagine how much water you have leaked. So same to electrical current. The better percentage that you have, right, you're saving energy, and that will help you to save on your electrical bill. Now, on the main unit itself, as for the dimension, the measurements are as follow. This is of 140 mm, and this is of 150 mm. At the height, this is 86 mm. I like this PSU a lot. It's small, able to fit any of the cases. You don't have to worry that it's long. So there'll be plenty of space if you fit this in a case, right? Except for SFX cases that able full APX power supply, right? When you fit this in, right, there'll be plenty of space for you to cable manage your cables and to tuck them nicely. And not only this, as mentioned, this are making use of 100% high-end Japanese cap. It does have 6 protection, and the protection are over power, over voltage, under voltage, short circuit, over current, over temperature. The total 6. This will safeguard your component to have a smooth current. Not only this, on top of which it has a 2 times power exclusion and a 3 times GPU exclusion. What does that mean? It will safeguard your motherboard in the event of rapid current, right? Meaning to say there are certain increase of power, or they call it spike. For the component of your motherboard, right, it's protected 2 times. And especially for your GPU, okay, dedicated for your GPU, it has 3 times of the protection. So this is actually what it meant. Before I make use of the power supply and to connect all my components on it, I always like to test it outside before plugging into any component and making use of this very simple device known as the power supply tester. As you can see, I've connected the 24 pin and the 8 pin EPS cable. Now I'm just going to turn on and you will hear a beep. Okay, just going to zoom in. As you can see the readings over here, right, don't be confused with this reading. It's quite simple. Starting off with the PG, which is known as power good, which says 120 milliseconds. This means that the current flowing to your AC to the power supply and the amount of time to have all power up, which is 120 milliseconds, which is okay. Ranging from 100 to 500 milliseconds is alright. If it shows more than 500 milliseconds, meaning to say that the power supply having some issues. And other readings like the 12 volt B1 and the 12 volt B2 is above 12 volt, which is good. Most of the platinum grade power supply will have 12.1, which is consistent. Those that are having gold, right, probably will have 12 or even 11.8. So this tells me that this is a platinum power supply. And besides this, right, the 5 volt and the 3.3 volt matches. And most important, which is the standby power, which is 5.1, which is above 5. This is good to go. After sharing with you the efficiency of what platinum power supply can do, which this amazingly a 80 plus gold can go platinum. Now, a word of advice: if you guys are making use of any power supply, be it gold or platinum or titanium or whatsoever, try not to use extension cables. Use the default cables that plugs to your power supply, and on the other end plug it to the component, so that you have direct current from the power supply to just one cable and to your component. Now the reason is, right, if you are to use extension, it gives another breakpoint. So having more breakpoint and having such lengthy cables, right, your current is going to be leakage, as in like it will leak. So try not to do that. I will show you why. So if you want to run at full, let's say this is graded gold or graded platinum, make use of the original cables. If not, yes, you can look for cable mode, see whether they have the blueprint for your power supply, then do a custom cable where it connects directly to the PSU to your component. I will be showing you the results making use of the original cables versus the extension cable. Now these are the components that I made use of. You can pause it, have a look. Things that I've done on the configuration is to enable the expo profile on my RAMs, and this is a random figure that I plugged on afterburner based on the fact that I want my discrete graphic card to pull as much voltage off from this platinum PSU. And these are the PPO2 limits which I set for my processor. Now as I run, right, take a look. Okay, take note on the voltage. Ignore the rest, just take note on the voltage, which is the 12 volt, 5 volt and a 3.3 volt, inclusive of the 12 volt high power cable. All these are original. Alright, so as I run consistently, as this is the first few minutes, you have to pull all the way to the last 3 minutes, which is here. See, so when I run, right, see, this is very consistent, and this are the characteristic of a platinum power supply, whereby the 12 volt is always above 12 volt, which you can see here is hovering around, it's hovering around 12.048 to 0.72 volt, which is good. And for the 5 volt, see, it's above 5 volt consistently, and for the 3.3 volt, this is also very consistent. With all this, right, your PC will run very healthy. And also the 12 volt high power cable, look at the voltage, it's very consistent. Now, reason for me to mention not to use the extension cables. Okay, let me just pull to the comparison. On my left, this is the original cable. On my right, this is making use of the extension cable. Take note, this is only a 24-pin extension cable. I've not introduced the 8-pin EPS extension cable. Okay, just this alone, take a look at the result. By the way, this is taken from the last 3 minutes of both, and when I run, tell me what's the difference. As you can see, right, using the original connection point, all this hover very nicely, inclusive of the 12 volt high power connector, or should I say cable. But if you do use extension, right, you are actually leaking power. Take a look. Okay, both using same spec components and such. The 12 volt have dropped to 11.9 something. Okay, hovering around 12 to this. It is not, meeting up the standard of a platinum. See, inclusive of the 5 volt, it's running on 4.8, and the 3.3 volt, see, it's below 3.3 volt. And mind you, the 3.3 volt is in fact to supply power to some of your miscellaneous, and for the 5 volt, right, I believe is actually for your RAMs and such. or is it the other way around? Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that without the power punch on the current, providing to your components, right, your component will not perform. Take for example the GPU. Now you know that I've set the settings to pull at certain millivoltage. Take a look. It can't sustain the clock speed. Okay. Over here is able to see. I can go up, no problem. Sometimes even hit up to 2.7 and such. See. And also this, right, it doesn't. It's trying to pull, and look at the current that is drawing. Due to the fact that this is leaking, it is trying to draw as much as possible just to sustain the clock frequency. Else for this, right, see, it's not even drawing 320, it's drawing this much, and it can sustain at 2.6, 2.76 megahertz, no problem. See? And look at the temperature. It's even higher when you use the extension cable. Reason being, right, is trying to pull. It's like forcing brutally to pull as much, current. Same goes to the rest. Sorry, over here. See? And this is the fact that this is only by one 24-pin extension cable. Imagine that I were to improvise an 8-pin EPS cable to here, also extension. This will even drop further, which is not healthy for a platinum power supply. So that's the reason why that I mentioned do not make use of any extension cables if you can. Okay, if you want to make use of extension cables, right, make sure it's directly plugged to the power supply and not having a separate extension. That will cause you to, not having power efficiency, and you are losing power, or should I say current, to hold the frequency that is required by the system. I've shown you the side effect of using extension cable as a weakness right in front of you. If you are to connect it direct without the extension cables, right, all your voltage like the 12 volt, 3.3 volt and the 5 volt, it will be right above, and you are really making full use of the platinum grade current. But adding a extension cable, right, first of all, is such a long cable whereby the current travel, right, from point A to the component, right, point B, right, it's going to make your power supply work harder just to pump the current. And as weakness, right, look at the GPU itself. Though it's not drawing from this, but this is leaking, causing it to pump harder on this section. Else on your GPU, the end, right, it is also trying to pull as much voltage. That's why you witness that the voltage is higher, which is 300 over, just to sustain the clock frequency on your GPU. But it did not sustain to 2.7 gig. As compared to direct connection, as you have witnessed, I am able to sustain that around 2.6, 2.7, and not drawing at the current of 300 over. So this is one bad point if you use extension cable. It brings more harm compared to bring more good. And in prolonged time or period, if you're going to use such long cables, right, with a breakpoint, right, your power supply, right, would definitely be damaged, overwork, in other words. So try not to use extension cables. I know they look good, but to me it's useless, pointless. If you want to enjoy the true platinum grade power supply, make use of direct cables. If not, as mentioned, you can engage cable mode. Okay, they do custom cables where it connects one end directly to the power supply, the other end to your component. But make sure you check if they do have the blueprint for this Montech Century II. Now, my impression of this power supply, okay, let me just remove this off. First of all, the design of what Montech have done, fantastic. A very unique cut out, or should I say the ventilated areas. See? And best part, it's very simple design. Okay, Century II. And it looks very elegant. Not only this, I like the fact that they have two-tone. And why am I liking two-tone? Based on the fact that a PC component itself, right, if you have everything flat, okay, just one color, right, it doesn't bring up the design. For this, take a look. You have the essence of silver and black, and the color right behind it is in fact a black fan, so it pops out. That's the reason why. And another point is that though this is a 80 plus gold power supply, but I've shown you everything. It is producing platinum grade of current. It's way above 12 volt, way above 3.3 volt, and way above 5.5 volt. Now, the question you might ask me, how reliable is this power supply? Well, I can tell you this. This is only released not too long ago. I had this power supply for more than 3 months, and all my motherboard content, right, with benchmark and such, right, I'm making use of this power supply. In the past, for almost a year, I've been using this to do all my liquid AIO content. Alright, this is the Montech Titan Go 1000, and the OEM maker is of CWT. Okay, it's actually a very strong OEM company. And when Montech passed me this and telling me the OEM is by XWY, a very new company, I was skeptic at first. But after using it for more than 2 months plus, right, the consistency of the current is there. Everything is there. I don't find any hiccups. I even do extreme overclocking, or should I say, not really overclocking, it's more like extreme drawing of voltage on my processor and on the GPU itself. No problem at all. And also another thing that, in fact, most Montech PSU, right, are very reliable. They might not be Corsair, Seasonic, Isotech, and etc., but all these are very durable. As mentioned to you, this is another PSU, which is the Titan Platinum, which is in white, which I often use this on white builds. And this is from Seasonic Direct OEM. So having said this, right, I right now begin to like this PSU based on the fact that, okay, all the current checkout, the design is so sleek, it stands out, and best part, it's small. When I do cable management on cases itself, right, for showcase, you have plenty of area for you to tuck your modular cables. Well done. With this said, I'd like to thank Montech to have provided this nice unit for me to share with you guys. And for those of you actually new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.